Welcome to Breeze Time with Kathy. Today I'm going to continue to tell you about my trip to Sicily. It happened several years ago, and I traveled with my uncle. I hope you've been enjoying this series.
Well, this is a trip, as you remember, that I took with my uncle, who is very familiar with Italy and lives in Italy half the year. But I went ahead and we rented a car and we drove through Sicily. Last week, I told you about our experiences in Montreal and Palermo here on the coast. Let me see. Yeah, right here on the coast. And then we drove across country down to Selinunte. It was a beautiful drive. The Sicilian, of course, it is part of Italy, but the countryside is just spectacular. It really was. We went through some mountains, and then we went all the way down to the coast on the southern coast of Sicily. Quite spectacular. And this is our little hotel. Very comfortable, very nice. As it turned out, there were a group of cross-country cyclists that were staying there. So in the evening when I would come down, everybody had their bicycles turned upside down all over the lobby, the whole seating area in the lobby. They were working on them. It was quite interesting. This is the view as we stepped out and looked up the beach toward the village, toward the town of Selinunte. And but what we'd come here for was actually in the other direction, and it's right there, just as you see it right at sunrise. Those are ruins. That's ruins of the city, the Greek city of Selinunte. And in the morning we were going to head over there. We found a restaurant with a wonderful view. Can you believe that's the moon lighting up the Mediterranean there? It was just spectacular. However, I have to admit that that there's one thing I learned to love in Sicily, and that was their pizza, and particularly their white pizza. This is a wood. Uh, the pizzazola. I learned that the chef is who makes pizza is called a pizzazola, that it's a specialty, and that they make it in these wood ovens, and it is just wonderful. And there it is. This is my favorite pizza. I'm afraid the quality of the picture isn't very good, but that's my hand. They're picking up a nice, you can see I'd already eaten half of it by the time I thought to take a picture. A wonderful white pizza, which I very much love. Just very basic, but fresh ingredients and mozzarella di bufala, and it is just wonderful. There we go. This is that crew. This is the chef and the people in the kitchen who made the pizza for us, and we had a wonderful meal, and they were very pleasant. Not a whole lot of people in the restaurant that night, so I have to admit they talked and joked with us and made it a wonderful evening. They were very welcoming. Well, in the morning we went to Selinunte. This is a picture, not a photograph, but a plan of the ancient city of Selinunte. It's really very fascinating because this section right here encloses about 250 acres of land. It's was a very populous Greek city. It was probably founded in the 7th century BC. And remember, this is a time when Greece ruled the seas. Well, Greece on one side and Carthage perhaps on the other, but on the Western Mediterranean. But the Eastern Mediterranean was pretty much controlled by Greece. And this was one of the most Western Greek cities that were founded, Greek colonies. And as a matter of fact, that gave it trouble as during its history it often was switched in control back and forth between, as a Greek city-state and then being held by the Carthaginians. Well, Anyway, it was founded in the 7th century, and it is actually named after a wild parsley that grows there. That's what we're told by uh, Thucydides, who wrote that in 415 BC that was what it was named for. And the site is just spectacular because the Acropolis sits right on the edge of the sea. The Acropolis, of course, was the hill where all the temples are located in any Greek city. And these are just it was a spectacular location. This is the parsley. They even put it on their coins, which I thought was rather strange. I don't know why parsley becomes so important, except it's a good cooking ingredient. Maybe they loved food. I don't know. This is a picture of some of the ruins. Not all the temple. Only one temple has been reconstructed. That's the temple way over here. So you can see the site is quite large. And this is just the Acropolis. And all of the columns, of course, and the building stones are all in ruin. But it is quite impressive. One of them has been reconstructed, and that's this one right here. It's quite large. This is the largest. This is the oldest, though not the largest of the temples. The one that they've reconstructed. That's my uncle. You get to see what size. He's about 6 feet tall, and going up to the temple. These are huge Doric columns. You can tell they're Doric by the simplicity of the capitals on top of the columns, and they're fluted. The inside is huge. This is only the base, part of the base of the altar. So the altar would have stood up even higher where they made sacrifices. And actually, this city had a population, they estimate, of about 15 to 20,000 people during the 5th century BC, made it a very large city. It's mentioned as being a very wealthy city, too. And what I liked about this temple was you could actually walk inside of it. Not something you can do when you're up at the Parthenon. You can't walk among the ruins in most places you go. They're roped off. But here you could actually walk inside an ancient temple. Here I am standing next to a pillar. Uh, that's the bad thing about traveling with just one other person, is that you can never get pictures of yourself together. And but you can see the dramatic overlook it is with the Mediterranean right behind me. And of course, looking south, the next piece of land you'd hit would be the coast of Africa, North Africa. Just absolutely impressive. I wish the day had been a little clearer. It was a little overcast. But this is the only one that has been partially reconstructed of the many temples that were located up here. So we walked to the other end, and there was another temple. Oh, and there's a lot of stones laying around. This is Uncle Chick standing next to the Capitol, a Doric Capitol for size. He's trying to pretend to be Michelangelo's Vitruvian Man, but uh, not Michelangelo's Vitruvian Man, let me tell you. But he's always a lot of fun. Ah, this one is this one. I just don't know how it's managed to balance there since antiquity, but apparently it has. You notice he's not sitting under it, he's sitting in front of it. And here I am standing among the ruins. I have to admit, it was so overgrown and so wild, and it made me feel the way perhaps 18th, 19th century European explorers felt Europeans felt when they visited these ancient sites. I don't guess they were explorers, but how they felt. And the early modern archaeologists who were studying these sites, to be able to go and walk among the stones. to see them jumbled and piled on top of each other. These are the big circular drums. You see, that's the way they used to cut the columns, and then they'd sit them one on top of the other. Now here we are at the site, and we're looking up the coast toward the city of the town of Selinente, and right there is our hotel. So it gives you some idea of the perspective of the size. Now there's many things about Europa, because supposedly Europa lived on Sicily, and Europa was famously seduced by Zeus. He fell in love with her because she was beautiful. Here's a Renaissance era painting of Europa. I don't know when this was painted actually, but obviously modern painting. Well, it's before the 20th century, I would guess. But here we have the story of Europa, right here, was out gathering flowers with her attendants, her handmaidens, and they came across this beautiful white bull. And Europa's fascinated by the bull, and she walks up and begins to pet it and everything. Of course, the bull is Zeus disguised as a bull. And eventually Europa climbs on his back. And the minute Europa climbs on his back, the bull plunges into the sea and he swims to Crete and he makes Europa, and he seduces or ravishes. In Greek mythology, seducing and ravishing are pretty much the same thing. And he makes Europa the first queen. He reveals his true identity, and Europa becomes the first queen of Crete. And to commemorate the incident, then Zeus puts the sign of the bull in the sky as the constellation Taurus. It's a wonderful myth. And then we drove down the coast. It was a beautiful drive, of course, all the way down to Agrigento. Agrigento is famous because of what's called the Valley of the Tombs. It's not really a valley, but it's a ridge of wonderful Greek temples that run through the area. They've been beautifully restored, and the grounds have been maintained tremendously. This is the best restored of all the temples, and it just looks terrific. Well, the reason it looks so terrific is because though it was built about 600 BC, at the time of Christianity, in about the 6th or 7th century, the temple had been closed. It was in about the 5th century, 500s or so. It had been closed, 5 or 600s. It had been closed, and then it had been closed in on the sides and converted to a Christian church. Had a roof on it and everything. Then back in the 19th century, they decided they had plenty enough churches, but not enough really high quality ruins. So they went ahead and they tried to make it look like they converted it back to a Greek temple, which is fine, but because all the Greek temples they saw were ruins that had no roof on them, they took the roof off, which unfortunately did not protect the structure quite as well as it might have, but that's the way it is. It is very well preserved, and it's quite spectacular. And the area is beautifully laid out. They've even got a modern sculpture garden. This right here in the foreground is a modern bronze. It's done in classical style with classical influence, but it is modern bronze. And they have these wonderful large bronzes all through this entire area as a large open air sculpture garden, along with the beautiful big preserved ancient Greek ruins. So here we have something from the 20th century alongside with something from the 5th or 6th century BC. Gosh, how long ago? Like 2,500 years before. It's very well done. But as you can see, all the ruins are properly roped off. See, here's another one of the sculptures. This is a little bit more modern, but it's still, because of the bronzes in it and the fact that they were made to look old, quite impressive. But everything is roped off. You can't go climbing on the rocks like I could up in Saliente, back in Saliente. And But still, it's very impressive. It's very beautiful, well maintained. It's quite the more popular spot, at least it was when we were there. And we were blessed with a nice day. But to tell you the truth, maybe I was getting tired of Greek ruins. You know, my uncle wanted to see all of Greater Greece um, in Sicily, and that's what we wanted to see. But I wanted to see early Christianity. This little simple church is actually right close to the ruins there, and it's wonderful because it was built in the fourth century, well, in the fifth century, right after Christianity was decriminalized by Constantine, and they could begin to build open places of worship. And so this was built probably around the year four in the early 400s. And the wonderful thing about it was never changed. It's this beautiful classic. It's a small church. It's a Romanesque style, which means, it has the pillars that run, the inner columns that run here and support the roof, and then there's windows. The windows only come up high. They didn't know how to do the big flying buttresses and things like Notre Dame Cathedral had that allowed the wide open spaces that were filled with stained glass. But this is very quiet, very peaceful, and feels very ancient, but yet very contemporary. Uncle Chick and I enjoyed it, and he sat and he rested, and he's a devout Roman Catholic, and of course he had prayer. I had prayer too, even though I'm a Methodist, because it was a very beautiful place, a very peaceful place, and it was easy to imagine, all those generations of Christians worshiping here, from the times that they could come out of hiding and build their own places to glorify God. Well, we left Argento and we drove. It's getting time for our journey to come to a close. And so we drove cross country all the way back over by Catania, where we had originally rented the car, but we were going to drive back to Naples and turn the car in there. So we drove up the coast to Messina. And the drive, once again, was just beautiful. The drive through the countryside was spectacular. The views of the Mediterranean were wonderful. Oh, by the way, that's Italy over there. I mean, that's the mainland of Italy. This is Sicily, which is part of Italy. And this is the hotel we stayed at. It was very nice, very quaint, but wonderful views. Very much enjoyed it. And we had one of the upper rooms. It was so nice. Oh, I forgot to mention how wonderful we mostly stayed at B&Bs. This is our breakfast at the last B&B we stayed in Sicily. The food was terrific. I mean, look at this. Croissants, we have all this fresh juice, orange juice. I don't remember what kind of juice that was, but that was another kind of juice. And maybe it was grapefruit. And then, of course, the Italians also like to have meat and cheese for breakfast. And it was just delicious. Just delicious. It's a light breakfast, but a very good breakfast. Well, we had to go ahead and go from Messina over to the toe of the boot of Italy, and the city that we were headed for is Reggio Calabria. We took the ferry, which was very easy. And we made it to Reggio Calabria. The big thing we wanted to see in Reggio Calabria was we wanted to see the museum there. Though we did walk through the streets, and here's a vegetable stand, a fruit and vegetable stand. Just so typical. Italians eat fresh. They mostly go out. My uncle, when he's in Italy, he goes out every day and he buys in the morning what he'll eat that day. And the food is fresh. And there's no long distance. Well, I don't know whether they're long distances, but the food is just so good and seems so nutritious. Maybe that's why they manage, on the whole, to stay a little thinner than the average American. But this is the museum we wanted to go to. This is the museum of in Reggio Calabria. It's quite famous, and because of two of its bronzes. That's the pride and joy of their collection. These are two bronzes that were found actually only in like the 1980s. A chemist from Rome was snorkeling just off the beach, about 200 meters off the beach, and he was only down, oh gosh, probably about 6 or 8 feet, and he noticed the left arm sticking up out of the sand. At first he thought he found a human dead body, but when he touched it, he realized he'd found a bronze arm. He sort of explored the area a little bit and he found a second bronze. Well, he went ahead and notified the police, fortunately. And on August 21st, which happens to be my birthday, they brought bronze number B was taken out of the water, and then bronze A. And in the immediate remains, they don't think it was from a shipwreck. What happened was the coast had sunk there. There were architectural remains all around there. And these bronzes are just spectacular. I mean, look at the detail on the face. You can see how they toned the lips to be more realistic, and the eyes, they filled them. I mean, that's the way bronzes looked in the ancient Greek period. Just terrific. He's even got teeth. It's really stunning. This is when they were taking the first bronze B, out of the water, and you can see it really wasn't all that long ago, just by the swimsuits and the wetsuits that they're wearing. Well, I guess the 80s are kind of back there now. That's 40 years ago, but it doesn't seem that long to me now that I'm 65. Another bronze. They have a second bronze. This is just a head. It's called the philosopher's head. It's believed to be Aristotle, and it too is very, very well done. There's actually only about 200 or so ancient bronzes from the Greek period in the world, and my uncle has seen about 150 of them. So he's on a quest to see all the ancient bronzes, Hellenistic bronzes from the Greek period. There's a lot of Roman copies of Greek bronzes that are Roman bronzes that are copies of Greek bronzes that are in existence. But as far as the original Greek, not so much. One of the things, though, I was really fascinated with were these reliefs, because these little stucco, they're not reliefs really, I guess they're frescoes, but they're paintings. Obviously, they were on a wall, and they show people in everyday life. Here they're reclined, which is the way people ate. They're probably reclined at table. This is probably a banquet, or they used to sit around and they'd listen to music. There's a musician playing a flute, and here's another musician playing some sort of stringed instrument, and I think that's a stringed instrument too. And they're jammed, I guess it's a jam session in ancient Greece, and after dinner, as they're reclined on their couches. Shows people being very athletic. Here's someone diving. I thought that was pretty interesting. Here's people at sports and games. These are two warriors, sparring, and here is a charioteer. So I really liked that. And we had a nice little hotel in Reggio Calabria, and this is like it. I think our hotel. This I don't remember whether this is our hotel, but this is what the front of our hotel looked like. And then we had a balcony room. I think I was trying to get a picture of our hotel. I think that's our hotel. Uncle Chick found these most wonderful little bed and breakfasts and small boutique hotels to stay in. He did. He made all the arrangements. Talk about spoil me when I travel with him. All I have to do is drive and be a companion, get him where he needs to go, and we have wonderful conversations and just a great time. I really liked Reggio Calabria. It was the last place we stayed. It had big, wide uh, plazas or walkways along the river, along the ocean, on the sea, the front of the Mediterranean, and it was just wonderful. I mean, it had rained a little bit, but you can see how it is. And later on that evening, when it cleared up, we went walking along there. I didn't take any pictures, but the weather was nice and mild, and everyone comes out after their evening meal. Everyone goes for a walk. Well, not everyone, but most people go for a walk in Italy. It's traditional, and particularly on a Sunday evening. It's one of the things that people do. And as a matter of fact, my uncle said it has a name, a Passeggiata. I can't say it very well. My Italian's terrible, but it means just a leisurely walk, and everyone goes out walking for exercise, walking to help the digestion, and I guess walking to be seen. I don't know, but there really is very, very nice custom. I'd probably be healthier. Now, I didn't take any pictures, like I told you, was when I went out for the Passeggiata, the walk after dinner. But what I had noticed was all the men and the Italian women, they'd walk this way. The man would walk with his hands behind his back, and the woman would tuck her arm underneath, in the crook of his, like that. And that was the way they walked together. As a matter of fact, it was funny because you'd see a father walking with his wife this way, and the boys would all be walking with their hands behind their back, just like the father. What a wonderful custom. As we went along the beach, walked along the river walk, whatever you want, the seashore terrace, like a boardwalk, but there was no boards there. Of course, it was nice. The plaza showed you. We saw a bride and groom taking their wedding photographs. Very nice. Well, the morning we got up and we drove back to Naples. Drove up to Naples and along the coast. It too was a wonderful drive again with beautiful scenery and just wonderful. We stopped at a roadside stand for lunch. I remember we had fresh tomato and mozzarella cheese. This is where mozzarella cheese, true Italian, the best, I'm told by my uncle, the best mozzarella di bufala comes from. And of course, mozzarella di bufala is mozzarella cheese made from water buffalo. Now, all the Italians laugh at the Americans because we call them buffalo, whether they're male or female. Well, buffalo is a male, and buffalo is a male, and bufala is a female. And of course, a buffalo is never a male buffalo is never going to have any milk. So they all laugh about how Americans say buffalo milk. It's an oxymoron to an Italian. But this is mozzarella di buffalo. We bought it at a roadside stand and we ate on a wooden picnic table. They sold us fresh tomatoes, a little bit of olive oil. We got a loaf of bread, and we had just some wonderful sparkling water, and which my uncle really likes good sparkling water, and they had good sparkling water. It's a whole nother story. I have to admit, it was just a fabulous meal, and it was one of the most simple meals I've ever eaten. Mozzarella di buffalo, tomatoes, and bread, and good company. Well, we reached Naples, and we turned in the car, and we headed home. Wonderful trip.
Well, I hope you enjoyed it, and it's been wonderful to talk to you and share these kind of memories with you. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my memories from my trip to Sicily several years ago. And until next time, God bless you.